tua fredda stanza, orderiva stelle.
Jack Posobiec back live, Human Events Daily, Phoenix, Arizona. We're on with Nick Sortor and my good friend, Cliff Maloney. Cliff, I don't know that we've ever been on in this studio before physically.
We have not.
Even though we were on, this is right where I think I was actually sitting in that chair on the election stream, and Blake was sitting in this chair. And of course, Charlie sits in Charlie's chair, which will remain open. And this is where we were on election night, man. This is right where we were. The tasty cake was right here.
I can't confirm that. Yeah, I was telling the story on Charlie's show earlier, because we played the clip, and I tell people that I got lucky because you guys were all here, So when Erica comes in, right, and she hugs Charlie, you guys have to react because you're in the room, with her. Well, we know what's the one thing we can't have during any live show is no one speaking.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it was technically,
So
you're right. It is a rule of broadcasting that you need some kind of filler. Yeah. But it's awkward when you're there because just hugging him, dude's balling.
Right. So I could deal with the awkwardness from not being there.
Right.
And so let me kind of give that little remember this moment montage, and of course we all will remember that moment.
And so tell me what your reflections were on, you went through that. We had the memorial yesterday, which became, and I'll just say this, backstage, I said to, I'll just say another one of the speakers, I'm not going to name names, but someone whose speech we all saw. And I said to him, what's crazy, or perhaps fitting, I should say, what's fitting, they're not cheering for the political stuff. They're cheering for the spiritual. Mm-hmm. This crowd, they don't want politics. They want the real stuff. Have you ever seen anything like that before?
No, and I don't think we will understand the gravity of the situation, especially us that knew Charlie. But anybody out there that's trying to analyze this from the political or the spiritual realm, the gravity of the situation, I think it's going to take probably 5 to 10 years to really understand how much of an impact this is going to have. No, and Jack, look, I don't talk about my faith often. I probably should talk about it more. I agree with what J.D. Vance said. I think in the last 12 days, I've talked more about Jesus Christ than I have in probably 20 years. So I think my reflection on it is it was an event that people, to be there was truly life-changing for those that watched it on the stream. I mean, you're right. It wasn't politics. It was talking about good versus evil. The event was talking about taking a 31-year-old's life for wanting just to be able to speak freely. Mm-hmm. So to me, I think being in that worship ceremony or setting, I think that there were more people that probably came to Christ yesterday during one of the pastor's speeches than probably any other live stream or event, I might say, in the history of the world.
It was contagious yesterday. The environment, the atmosphere, along with the speeches, people were intently listening to this stuff, and even me, I'm not a particularly religious person either, and I'm 100% convinced that the Holy Spirit was in the room. You could feel it. Mm-hmm. It was just an incredible feeling, and I hope that keep considering there were how many people ended up in the arena? 70,000 at full capacity.
It was about 70 in that arena, and then another, I think, 50 in the arena. The overflow for this event was not the parking lot; it was the arena across the street, which was also filled to the brims, with no speakers. But they had it on the jumbotron. They had the speakers, and they said, and every seat was filled there too.
And it was wall-to-wall coverage on the networks, even MSNBC carrying it live without commercial breaks, CNN doing it, which is mind-blowing. They were broadcasting in the entire.
I kind of love the idea that the media had to actually listen to the gospel.
Yes, and they had to give it to their, the evil demons that listen to this stuff.
Oh, demons writhing, screaming, throwing up. No.
But they're losing the plot, man. They have to.
Totally.
And that was one of the things that they were desperately trying to do yesterday was downplay it. They were trying to criticize the fact that so many people were coming together and not just crying in unison and surrendering, by cowering down to these people, we were. It was a revival. I know we've said it 50 times now, but that's exactly what it was.
I would be remiss.
It was a celebration.
I would be remiss if I didn't mention this. And as any Rush Limbaugh fan would know, that if Rush were alive today, he would be spending his entire show comparing this to the Wellstone Memorial, when the Democrats got up there and spent the entire day all politics, demonizing, attacking, and just totally off the rails, people giving like crazy long speeches and just absolute absurdism. Whereas this, and by the way, just so people, a little bit behind the scenes, I guess, that I didn't have a single person, come to me and say, hey, this is what we want you to hit. We want you to, keep it focused on this. None of that. None of that. Yeah. I didn't have a single person. There was no notes. There were no. I mean, I kind of sent some like talking points, like, hey, this is what I'm thinking about doing, and they were just like, looks good, and that was it. But I wrote that,
And so I mean, that like this is all from the heart.
So we all did that without coordinating,
and that's what Charlie would have wanted. You know this from doing.
That's how normal turning points are too.
Events is one of the only events where I come and I'm like, hey, are there certain things you do want me to talk about? Don't want me to talk about? No. We love your work, Cliff. Come and talk to our people about the work you're doing. Talk about our partnership.
That's what Charlie always did.
It was always whatever you want to do. The floor is yours. And I think that those speeches yesterday.
I definitely pushed Charlie's limits a little bit on that from time to time. Certain pink hat fiasco that a little while back, which is totally right, by the way. Nothing was wrong on those hats, but no, it was touching beyond words. I kind of want to. I don't know if it came across on television. I'd love to talk to somebody who wasn't there in the room. I mean, I get the sense, from just what I'm hearing and, friends and folks back home that I've talked to and just endless text messages that it did, but I in that room, it was palpable. It was absolutely palpable. And, I had the question of whether or not I wanted to bring my boys there, Jack, and AJ. They're 7 and 4. They knew Uncle Charlie. And, it's kind of one of those questions like, do you want kids at a funeral sort of thing? And I said, you know what? I want them there. And shout out to Tanya Tay for bringing them and just being with them. And they were great, very well behaved all day. But you need that because at the end of the day, we're turning this over to them at some point.
Right.
Well, when it comes to watching these things, this was a long event, right? I mean, when did it start? Like 11?
The whole thing. I think the actual, if you look at the Turning Point stream, it's like 9 hours.
Right. And the audience, if you look at the retention graph, it's not like it drops off. It continues constant. But it's such the Turning Point production team is freaking incredible when it comes to making this stuff. I'm watching the clips back, even as I'm there, seeing as people are talking and you get the reaction from the crowd that they're broadcasting live. They had cameras all over the place that really hit the message home. You're not just hearing the applause, you're seeing it. You're seeing close-ups of people crying. And people at home were able to connect with that. I've been talking to people, like even my mom, that watched it, and that's the reaction that she had to it.
Yeah, I mean, I think there were, first and foremost, there was the reaction when you first walked in. I'm sure we all had the same exact experience. I mean, it hit me hard walking in that room. And I got there right about when the first worship was starting. Mm-hmm. And, to me, I mean, especially being on the floor and just kind of looking around, I mean, it was wild. And then the most emotional moment for me was, Jack, your speech was great, but I'm gonna trumpet a little bit with Erica's speech.
Erica's speech was the best.
And it just
100%.
I just couldn't hold back. And I'm not an easy crier, the type of guy. And just when she came out, like before she even spoke, it just became real for me. And everybody kind of has that.
No, you mean that there was that moment before she got to the microphone?
Yes.
Where it looked like she was praying because she kind of had her head down a little bit. And then she says, I love you. And it was like a prayer that turned into a message to Charlie.
Yes. Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know how you can watch something like that and not be moved. I don't know. Even Even Milo Yiannopoulos tweeted. He said that's the second time I've cried this year.
I don't see President Trump being an emotional guy either. At least he doesn't put on that public face. But the way that he called her up on stage and embraced her at the end, that was making me tear up for sure. I mean, you could tell how much that meant to her, how much that meant to Erica in that moment. And Trump stood up there for 3-4 minutes with her, just hugging her, and
almost felt like she was a granddaughter to him.
Yeah,
that's kind of how I took that.
And I mean, it's family, right? Charlie was. I mean, yeah, and even Don said it. He's like, Charlie was like my little brother, and I think you could see it in Trump's face when he was at that 9/11 memorial. Here's a man who was in New York on 9/11, watched the towers fall from Trump Tower, went down to Ground Zero a couple of days later, and he's at that memorial. But he also himself just lost a son. Right? Like, that was the face of a man who just lost his son. Cliff, Nick, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for speaking for Charlie, for speaking for Erica. We got one more segment. Nick, I think we're going to have to switch you out because I got a very, very special, well-constructed guest.
Oh,
joining
yeah.
us next.
Thank you, man. Appreciate you. Keep up the good work.